All right, so I finally got the throttle pedal done. Thank goodness for that. A lot going on to get it to work. As you had seen before, I had this bracket welded in here already for the pedal pivot. I added a aluminum spacer here to space it out just a little bit, because where the throttle cable comes through is over here. That is in line with all of the carburetor linkage and everything. And so you can see it's pretty far offset from where the pedal is. So I had to remedy that. So what I've done is I took the original pivot here. This used to be welded right to here. I've taken, and luckily I had a piece of stainless steel rod that was the right dimensions, and so I lengthened it. You can see where I welded it on here and then welded it here. I also shortened this to fit, and so now this is the pivot point right here. I made this and welded this in so the shaft slides all the way through it, and then we have all of our bushings and some lock washers. So this bushing here fits in the tab. These two fit in the pivot there. And then I have two lock washers which go on the shaft, and I force outwards and lock them in so there's no wiggle in the shaft back and forth. And then with the pedal, it's splined, so that goes on the end there. And the last thing I did to get this to work was I flipped the actual pedal upside down so that it hangs lower. And so that's all the stuff I had to do to get this thing to work. That's kind of what happens when you shove the engine as far back as you can get it, and then you have a dual carburetor setup, and everything that is custom going on here kind of forces you to figure things out. So I'm going to put this back together. I'll show you how it goes together here. All right, so first we put the bushings in the original pivot here. I'll put the bushing in the tab that I made, and then the shaft goes through, one lock collar on, second lock collar on, goes all the way through here now. And this is the throttle cable here, so we'll put that guy on. Push it up against here. This way we're gonna get the full range of motion. And with that all the way up against the firewall, then I set the pedal height here. And I think that is going to be a little too high. We'll go down just a little bit. All right. And so there is a set screw here on the pedal for the splines. So I kind of squeeze these together and tighten that spline. And now these lock washers go in, and that just keeps the shaft extra sturdy here, so the thing has a nice smooth motion. Lock those in, get the other one, lock that in. And so you can see this has nice easy motion. So yeah, a little bit of work to get this to function here, but it has the amount of throw that we need up here. Needed 2.5 inches of cable pull to fully open the carbs, and that's exactly what we have. And nice easy motion. So there you go, there's the throttle pedal done. And this morning I also got the clutch pedal back in. I made a mount for it to bolt to. This just has a bolt at the front and the back, you can see. And so I welded this right to the firewall and right to the tab that mounts the brake pedal and booster. And then I have a bolt-on tab right here that triangulates and kind of strengthens the whole clutch pedal, so the whole assembly is in there real solid. Then I went and made the stainless hardline here that comes down into a couple of adapters that go 90 degrees and then from -3 up to -4, because the soft lines coming out of the transmission are -4. And so all of the clutches now plumbed. So now that I have the brake pedal in, I have to modify, or sorry, now that I have the throttle pedal in, I have to modify the brake pedal. I'm going to cut a little slice right here and bend this forward so that I have more range of motion for the brakes, because I think right now as it sits, the brake pedal is basically going to have to go almost to the floor to, you know, put full pressure into the system. And so it's running into the floor, so I just need to bend it forward a little bit so that it has a little bit more of a range of motion. So we're going to do that, and then once the arm is modified, I can weld on the nut for the brake pedal pad. I have a pad that matches the throttle pedal for the brake and the clutch. So once I get the brake completely modified, then I'll have to modify the clutch pedal, because I want all of them to be spaced nicely and be the same height. I don't want one sticking out significantly further than the other. So everything has to go based off of the throttle pedal, because the throttle pedal is the one with the least amount of adjustment, being that it had to have that 2.5 inches of cable pull, and to do that, the height of the pedal off the floor has to be right there. So we'll get the rest of these arms for the 2 remaining pedals done and get those pads mounted, and then this whole system will be done here. I also have the brake booster line that I'm going to have to plumb and run through the firewall. So doing cars like this, there's always something else that needs to get done. You just gotta keep the momentum rolling. This brake pedal, I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's real sturdy and it functions well, but you know, it's taken me quite a few hours here today to get this all figured out. I had to run to the hardware store and get some hardware and the locking collars and everything like that. And this is kind of the second version too. I was kind of going in a different direction that didn't work, and so it's part of the process when you're building a car to this level here. So I will keep jamming on it, check back in with you guys when there's some more progress to show you. All right, so I have the pedals all done now, finally. Got the clutch pedal done and the pedal pad put on. Had to make one final adjustment to the brake pedal arm, and then made another quick adjustment to the throttle pedal. You can see I use this Willwood clutch pedal, designed more for race car stuff, but they're nice and cheap and I'm really familiar with them. I had to modify the arm of the pedal quite a bit. This part right here used to weld up to here, so you could see it was going to be way too short and in the wrong position. I couldn't move this over any, and I didn't want to drop it down because then you'd see it below the dash. So you can see I got all the pedals nice and spaced out evenly, same height on all of them. Of course, everything is adjustable. The brake pedal, clutch pedal, throttle pedal, all I can adjust the height on them. And so happy with how it turned out. You can see plenty of movement here for each of the pedals. But now that I'm at this point, one of the things that's been bothering me for quite some time is this guy. That was the first bulkhead that I put through the firewall when I ran the hard line for the back brakes up to the front. And I don't really know what I was thinking. I kind of figured, it's going to be under the pedals. Pedals aren't going to go touch the floor. It's going to be carpet, it'll be fine. And as each day goes on that I'm working on the pedal setup and everything, it's just kind of digging away at me a little more and a little more. And now that I have the clutch pedal in and everything else, it's got to go. So what I'm going to do is take this guy and move it up here so I can still use this same line. I'll take this line and I'll throw a flare in it, move this tube nut up, throw a flare in it. I'll put the bulkhead union up here so it's out of the way of the pedal, and further up, kind of tucked in with the rest of all this stuff. The thing that sucks about it a little bit here is that the line is one piece coming all the way from the back of the car, and you can see it goes to right here. It would be really nice if I could just bend this 90 degrees and go straight over, but you can see where this is the front driver's side brake hard line. The line that's not connected right now, that's for the clutch line. Once I get the engine back in, I'll modify that line to meet up right there. And so moving this to where I want it to be is going to be up more in this area. So one of the things I can do is get a 90-degree coupler and just aim it that way, and then run the new piece of hard line just straight over. I can 90 that line over, 90 it up, and then go straight into the bulkhead union that way. So I'm gonna get working on that now before I get the engine back in, so I can just get that one and done dealt with. Then I want to get the engine back in so that I can shorten this clutch line. I have a 90-degree fitting to go on it, so this will just route over to that bulkhead union that I showed you. This is the bleeder. I took the transmission off last night and I reconfigured how the lines are so they don't have as much flex in the bell housing. They're not making as tight of a bend. And this guy will just come down along the frame rail, get captured with a P-clamp, and when I need to bleed it, I can take it off the P-clamp, make it the highest point of the system as far as the hydraulic throwout bearing goes, bleed it, and then just clamp that back down in place. So that'll be nice and easy to do. Once I get the engine back in too, I'm going to get the alternator and the starter on it for the first time. I have all the cable for that, the wiring, so I want to run the wire from the starter and the wire from the alternator back to where the battery is going to be mounted. And then I also want to put the shifter on for the first time to kind of get an idea of what I'm going to have to do to modify the arm to get the shifter to be in the right position. I also have a shift boot, just a universal shift boot that I bought that I have modified to fit. So you can see the screws are sitting through there and those bolt in to the top of the transmission here, just like this. And so that has rubber on the bottom to seal it, and then it'll seal it around the shaft, and it'll have plenty of movement. Now I'm going to put a shift boot on top of this, so eventually there's going to be carpet over top of obviously the floor, but also the transmission tunnel and the drive shaft tunnel. And so I'll cut the carpet out around this. So this will be against the transmission tunnel here and seal it. There'll be some carpet around it. Then we'll have a shift boot, and I'll make a stainless steel or aluminum bezel for that to bolt on as like a nice little trim piece. So it's not just going to be this rubber hanging out here. I'll have a shift boot eventually, but at first this will suffice just to keep all the elements out. So I want to get the shifter in, like I said, so I can start thinking about the placement for that. And then also once I get the engine back in, I'll get the intake manifold and carbs on there. And you can see the bracket I made for the throttle cable. So I want to get the throttle cable fully connected now that the pedal's in, make sure that it opens the carbs fully, and then I can start thinking about the fuel system for the carbs as well, because that's going to be pretty complicated packaging to get everything looking nice and symmetrical and functional. I want to do hard lines for everything, so that's a big project that I at least want to start thinking about. Maybe not start tackling today or tomorrow, but I'm gonna modify that fitting, and we'll get the engine back in. I'll check back in with you.
You know what protocol is?
Yeah.